what happened after Wystan, or what is said to have happened after Wystan was killed, which was either on or just before the Feast of Pentecost, which may be significant, but very quickly miracles began to happen at Wistow when people were there. People were healed, and it became the centre of several pilgrimages, but certainly it was still being visited on pilgrimages in the middle of, say, the 13th century. So the legend was still extant then. Of course, and we certainly have records which say from the small church in Wixton, not the main parish church, but the smaller one, which is dedicated, would you believe, to St Wystan, that they had an effigy in their church, the records show this, covered in diamonds, an effigy of Wystan, and there would be a pilgrimage on Pentecost coming from there, going down to Wistow, and they had to be there at dawn to see these amazing miracles. At the same time, we know that a pilgrimage was setting out from Leicester, equally walking, carrying an effigy, again reputed to be covered in every precious stone there was. So we have to imagine these pilgrims led by, sort of the top brass in the church, the bishop, or various people like that, priests, lots of, and it would be a day out, a lovely day as it is today, which is June the 1st tomorrow. And you get there, but you had to get there before dawn while the mist was still there. It's very flat at Wistow, in a wide valley of the River Glen. And what would at the day that Wystan was murdered, a column of light went from the place of his death right up to the sky, right up to heaven. And this column of light stayed there for 30 days. We don't know in the legend whether that's meant to have happened then, but just as dawn rose and the mist was rising, Wystan's golden hair began to come up, and could be seen by everybody to be growing his hair in the very place where he was slaughtered. And I presume people went there because obviously the place where the miracle happens is the place where presumably you're most likely to be healed. And the tradition, almost to the Reformation, was that on June the 1st, the clergy would come out of the abbey processing, carrying the head of Wystan, which had had the top of his head cut off, I forgot to mention this, by his cousin Bertfrith. And then a famous monk who was living at that time at the monastery wrote down the story of St Wystan to explain why this skeleton, minus the top of the head, or in fact only the head, survived. And where that relic is now, I don't know. You never know with the Reformation what happened to things.
This church has actually never been a parish church as such. In other words, it's never been the official church serving the local community. And therefore there's always been a bit of a question as to why would you need two churches in one parish. And therefore I guess there's always been a little bit of a question mark hanging over the future of the building, and that question mark has become a lot larger recently due to problems with falling masonry and major repairs that are now needed, and also the major costs that would be involved in upgrading the building for modern use, putting in running water so that we could have a kitchen and a toilet area and so on. And that is why, sadly, for the last couple of years or so, the church has remained empty and unused. But both the church and the Borough Council and other local groups, historical groups, are very keen that this building should continue as part of the local heritage and should be valued as such. And so as we go through the ongoing process of deciding what will happen to it ultimately, we're very keen that it should be put to some good community use, whatever that might be. If it ceases to function as a place of regular worship, that it should be used for some community purpose which is of value to all the local people, and above all that hopefully the steeple will remain as one of the two steeples. And as part of that process, I'm delighted that the Borough Council have really engaged with us in wanting to emphasise the role of this local saint, to raise his profile, and to have what we hope will become an annual event, a major festival, when we hope that part of that will be people making pilgrimage from Wistow to here, but where there'll also be a major local event in the town itself, so that everybody, whether religious or not, will be able to celebrate this very important local saint and this major part of our local history.
So what's our vision for this pilgrimage? Using very much established and existing paths right across Leicestershire, starting over in the east and then moving to the west, ultimately heading up near Burton-on-Trent. We make our way from Laund Abbey through Kibworth, through the areas of Wistow, into Leicester itself with the pinnacle of the cathedral, but then we head out through Syston, Rothley, and across through many of the Bradgate Park, those sorts of areas, to ultimately get towards Burton-on-Trent. The route itself is designed very much that one can decide which sections you want to do. There may be an opportunity to do a journey over a number of days, or it may just be a day walk. But ultimately, we want to cultivate discussion, reflection, and that will be done through looking at some of the historical aspects of the places that we go through and the stories that they generate. Time to reflect, time to pray, and time to consider what those places meant from many years ago to many different people.